Good afternoon to you all. It's a beautiful day today, and today we're going to explore some ideas about whether a greenhouse is a better place to store and to grow your tropical plants or your house plants, or is a grow room the better place? So this might be, of course, useful to anybody who is thinking of getting a different place or building or purchasing a different place in order to grow their tropical plant stroke house plant. So let's dive in. And we are in. So we are in the greenhouse, of course, at the moment. Quick summary. What happened was a few weeks ago I decided that it would be a really good idea to move all the plants that I had in this sectioned off area over here, which isn't sectioned off anymore. It had a curtain across, and there were lots of warm growing plants over here, what you would traditionally call house plants at least, and they were all moved over to a new building which I'm now calling the Hothouse. So the idea behind that was that it would be a better place for them. So first of all, what's good about growing in a greenhouse as opposed to growing in a grow room? So by grow room, I'm talking about either a room in the house, or in my particular case, it's an outside building, but it's not just an ordinary outside building. It's not just like a shed. This is a specifically designed office building. That's what it was actually purchased for, and that's what it was created as. So it has certain characteristics which make it particularly good for growing plants in, even though that's not necessarily what it was for. So in terms of a greenhouse, what's good about it? Well, there's a few things that I can come up with. First of all, you can make a mess. Now, if you've got a grow room in the house, that's not something that you can really do. And by making a mess, I don't mean purposely throwing things around. You know, you can water and let the water drip onto the floor. You can spray things and let it go onto the walls, onto the glass, onto the bubble wrap and so on. There are things that can fall off and you can just leave them kind of hanging around. Now obviously there are limits to that, but you don't want to be making too much of a mess, but you can do that if you like. It's not quite the same as growing something in your dining room or your living room. You know, if you have plants in the house and they're not in a purposely designated area, then it would not really be that good if you just let everything kind of fall off and hang around underneath and so on and so forth. You don't want that in your house, do you? The other advantage of a greenhouse is that everything is together. If I have things in the house, I've got them all dotted about the place in different areas. Of course, that's not a problem in the grow room. They're all in the same place, just the same, so I can't really count that in my particular comparison. Other benefits, I can, if I like, remove some of this bubble wrap and I can make it more ventilated in a greenhouse. That's something, again, I'm particularly limited in a grow room or a grow space, because those windows are not going to be specifically designed to aerate the space. In a greenhouse they are, so I've not only got the vents up there, I've got two double vents on this side, another two on the other side, and then I've got them over there as well. So we've actually got 4 double vents, and we also have 5 louvre windows which are underneath the benches here, which actually I think are badly designed. You should, in my opinion, be actually able to get to them from the outside and open them from the outside, but you can't. You've got to crawl under the benches to do that. So that's another one of the reasons for growing in a greenhouse, is that you can more easily and readily ventilate it. That's a theory anyway. Now again, in a greenhouse you would expect it to be better and more well lit than in a grow room. Certainly if you're growing your plants in a designated room, it's not necessarily going to be brighter than what's in a greenhouse. You would expect, wouldn't you? Because obviously I've got these glass roofs and I've got glass walls and so on, so I would think I'm going to get more light in a greenhouse. Again, not necessarily so. So in a greenhouse I think you actually get less light in my particular greenhouse. I also think that in terms of ventilation you don't necessarily get more ventilation in a greenhouse, in my particular case anyway. Why? Well, okay, I've got all these vents up here, but they're all closed. Why are they all closed? Well, because I've got insulation on. Why have I got insulation on? Because it's only single paned glass and it costs an awful lot to heat it. If I was just growing things in here that only started during the springtime, that wouldn't matter. I could ventilate away, couldn't I? But obviously I'm trying to grow tropical plants, so it isn't designed for that kind of heat retention. They're just not. They're not designed for that. So you're trying to do something in a building that isn't designed for that particular purpose. And for that reason, you've got to put layers and layers and layers of bubble wrap, sometimes on the inside, sometimes on the outside. In fact, in my case, I did it both inside and outside. I had absolutely no idea that we would get 3 storms in a week, and that blew most of the outside bubble wrap off. But of course, the inside bubble wrap has done a good job, but nowhere near as good as I would like it to. It's still costing an absolute fortune. So in terms of ventilation, all my inside vents, louvre windows, are all sealed up. And I really am disinclined to go crawling underneath to try and release them. So already we've blown out of the water 2 of the ideas. Oh, I've not actually talked about the light yet. Okay, so why is it not that bright in here? Well, because of where the greenhouse is positioned. I've got trees outside, great big huge trees, which you may well have seen on previous videos. I have a garage right next to the greenhouse there, and you can actually see where the line of the garage, can you see that line across there? That's where the garage is. So for a lot of the year, the light is actually blocked off there because the sun is too low in the sky. So we're at springtime now, obviously. So that will reduce as time goes on. I will get more and more light further down as the sun gets higher in the sky. But throughout the winter, when I need it most, probably, the light just isn't coming. Now I have the grow lights, but again, the grow lights, what I find happens, and people who have conservatories might notice this, if you actually get your lights on during the night time and you've no blinds on your conservatory, you find that it just doesn't light up the space. Why? Because you get light bleed. The light bleeds through the windows and lights up the outer spaces, and I kind of think that's what happens in here. You'll see the difference when we go over to the hothouse, but here in the greenhouse, I don't think these lights, these grow lights, are really hitting where they're supposed to hit. I know I've got them quite high up as well, which doesn't help. I should really have them further down, closer to the plants, but of course they get in the way then, so it's really a no-win situation for me. Different, of course, if you're growing something like seeds and seedlings, because you don't really look at them in aesthetic terms. You just want to get as much growth as you can. But for me, I want to see these plants. They're an aesthetic to me. They're certainly an aesthetic in terms of I want to come in here and look at the lovely plants. I don't want to be dodging around grow lights that's in the way. So I think that the lighting in the hothouse is actually better than it is in the greenhouse. So I've already kind of stated some of my case there, that the greenhouse in my particular place, in my particular country, in the specific area that I've got it, isn't as good for growing tropical plants, for growing house plants as the hothouse is. So let's quickly move over to the hothouse and have a look as to why I think that. And just as a little detour, just so you can see who's making all the barky noises and interrupts all my videos and has got muck in his hair. What have you been up to? This is little Fudge, and he's lovely, but he's a bit barky at the moment. He seems to be barking at everything that goes past, gets up in the front window, and every single thing, whether it's a dog, cat, person, he likes to have a little bark out, don't you? Didn't do this for ages, but he's 2 now. Oh, have a little roll over. He's a good boy though, aren't you? You're a good boy, you're just a little barky at the moment, and I think he needs a bath. Right, you can have a little sleep there. No more barking, mister. Absolutely glorious day today. And just before we go into the hothouse, I thought you might want to see the magnolia. Again, probably seen it before, but it's just bursting, just coming out into bloom. Very, very much a spring day today. So let's head on over to the hothouse. I've had to turn the lights off. When I do the editing, I will brighten it up a little bit, but we've had to turn the lights off because they flicker on the video. So what were we talking about? So why do I think it's actually better in here? Well, to put it simply, I've got much better growth in the last 3 weeks in here than I've had all through the winter. Now, this might be, of course, the lengthening days, the more light. Of course, it's spring, you tend to get more growth. But I still feel, having grown these plants for a couple of years in the greenhouse, I still feel that I'm getting more growth over the last few weeks than I have or than I would have done if all these have been the equivalent time of the year over in the greenhouse. So why might that be? Well, I've been trying to have a think about that. Now obviously this is it is an insulated building, but what advantages does that give me in terms of plant growth factors? Well, first of all, I think there are less temperature fluctuations. That stands to reason. It's a wooden building. Yes, there is some glass. It doesn't get much direct sunlight. It tends to get direct sunlight for about half an hour. That's all in the day. So in terms of light coming in from outside, it's not getting a great deal, I have to say. But when the sun does hit it, it's not going to warm up anywhere near as quickly as the greenhouse does. So you don't have that wild temperature fluctuation. So in the greenhouse, the fluctuation can be like an amplitude of 20 degrees quite easily. In no time at all, you've got that huge either dip in temperature or rising of temperature. And I think some plants, they're not that happy with that. They don't like that. They prefer it to be more on an even keel. I think you get less light bleed. So I've only got cheap grow lights here, but they do a really good job. They're probably closer than the ones in the greenhouse, but they do a really good job, certainly the walls and the white walls that we've got, of reflecting that light in. And I think they're hitting the plants better and are actually giving me more light, more brightness than what I'm getting in the greenhouse. So in the greenhouse, not only does it go out the windows, but I've got that bubble wrap on there. That also prevents some of the light coming in as well. Again, it's just a theory, but why else would I appear to be getting better growth? I think also in the greenhouse, you get cold pockets of air. So you can imagine a situation where, especially when it's below zero outside, below 0 degrees Celsius, where the temperature in certain areas of the greenhouse is dropping so rapidly, and the heater, which is only a little heater like the one down there, the heater can't actually warm it up quickly enough to prevent it from dropping below whatever set point I've got it. Again, not the same in here. It takes such a long time, and I tested it, didn't I? It takes such a long time for the temperature to drop in here. Again, it evens out those extremes. So I don't think you get as much in terms of cold pockets. I think the humidity, again, is something that is more on an even keel. You're not getting that rise and fall in humidity. It's more evenly distributed. Now, in terms of plant growth, well, I'll show you something that is quite significantly different. Oh, we've got a little visitor coming. Are you coming in, Fudge? Or are you staying out there? What are you doing? Come in if you like, just don't grab anything. So let's have a look at this Hoya. Now, you might have seen my Hoya over the last couple of years. It certainly looks to me hugely different. It looks way more healthy than it did when it was in the greenhouse. It's put on a load of growth. Now we're talking about 3 weeks. It's never put this amount of growth on in 3 or 4 weeks. We've got all that is new. That whole section is new. And look what we have here. We have a peduncle. We have some buds. Now in 3 years of owning this plant, I've only ever had one peduncle which blasted, but 3 or 4 weeks of having it over here and we have a bloom almost. I'm hoping we get a bloom, and I think we will, because I'm also able to water it a little bit more easily in here because I now have my new sprayer, which I talked about in my last video. So that may be a point, you know, that might be the reason. It might be because I'm simply watering it more. But I just wonder, I really do wonder whether it's something to do with the environment of this particular kind of building. I'm just looking over, I'm just laughing at the number, I don't know if you can see on those little sticky traps, the number of fungus gnats that it's caught. Gosh, I didn't realise I had so many fungus gnats. Okay, so other growth that we've had huge amounts of. Look at this begonia green gecko. Every time I look at it, there's another leaf on it. Now again, it's not a new plant. I've had it for probably just over 12 months, and it's absolutely going crazy. And all the begonias are. They're just, every time I look, every time I come in here, in fact, there's a new leaf on some of these begonias. You know, they're just going bonkers. We've got the Griffon over here, and it's got this great big long spike on it. Look at that, huge spike, huge thing happening. We've got, again, another begonia here. Look how many new leaves. Again, if you recall that this had 1 or 2 new leaves when I brought it in, and it's just going bonkers. Now, is that because we're in spring, or is it because of the environment, the improved growing environment? We'll talk about orchids. Over here, I've got an orchid that's never bloomed. Look how many buds are on that orchid now. It's getting direct light, not sunlight, but it's getting direct light right next to the window. I've got loads of new growths, you probably can't see, or you might be able to do, right in the pot there. We've got new buds, we've got new growths, we've got just tons of things happening that didn't happen over in the greenhouse. And I really, really do think it's the environment that's making the difference. For the very first time ever over on my Brassica Orange Delight, we've got 1 bud out there, 1 flower that's just appeared, but I've got 2 spikes on it. Never had 2 spikes on it, no matter where it's been. Okay, so these are the reasons why I think that things are just growing better. This begonia Connie Boswell, again, loads of new leaves on it. I never had more than 2 leaves. I had it for a year and I just had the same 2 leaves, nothing happening. Now we've got loads of leaves on it. So, you know, I'm totally aware that this could simply be that we're in a good time of year for growth, for new growth, or it may well be that I'm correct and this is a better environment for plants, or certainly for these kinds of plants. Greenhouses are fantastic, but if you're growing tropical plants in them, if you're growing house plants in them, then the fluctuations that you get in all those growth factors, in light, in humidity, in temperature, it's just not good for them. They're not used to it in reality. They're not used to it in the native countries, the species that they come from. This is what you get. You get that lack of growth, that lackluster growth, and you get the rotted roots and so on and so forth. So if you are thinking of getting a greenhouse for growing your tropicals or your house plants, then I would certainly suggest you either think about growing them in the house in a specified grow room, or you think about perhaps getting some kind of building like this. You know, I mean, even a lean-to against the house might even be a better option in terms of trying to keep the extremes from fluctuating so much. I think so anyway. I'm one of those people that if evidence comes to light or somebody has another argument for me, I will change my mind if that evidence presented to me is quite compelling. But for now, that's what I'm going with. I think this is a better place, and I think I'm going to find that especially my orchids are not going to rot the same. I might even, and don't fall off your chair here, I might even try another Miltoniopsis and see if I can actually get it to survive in this particular building, whereas over in the greenhouse, I could never get them to last for more than a year or 2. Okay, so it's over to you. What do you think about this? What do you think? Tell me in the comments. Also, I'd like you to tell me about the video I did on chores and jobs. Is that the kind of thing people like to watch? No doubt I'll get some who do and some who don't, but tell me what you think. Do you like that kind of video? So I think we'll leave it at that for now, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.